Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Demetri Dancing here on Trending in Hollywood.
Thank God only here.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode.
A very special episode because apparently it's Ghostbusters Day.
Oh, yes, it is.
Trending in
Hollywood. There we go. So this was not planned, ladies and gentlemen. Kids of all ages. Not planned at all. We just ironically are wearing two different Ghostbuster shirts. So
is it ironically or coincidentally? It could be irony.
It could be. Maybe a little bit of each.
Yes.
All right. So this was an interesting week. Not exactly a huge news week outside of like casting. I feel like every week there's like so many more casting stories coming out as Hollywood continues to reopen. But we're going to start off. We'll go back. We'll take a trip back to Monday, the first day of the week, where Hollywood got some news at the end of the day. And that news is this: Arclight cinemas and Pacific theaters to close.
Yeah.
And boy, I mean, you would think like Tom Hanks died or something happened. Every single person, it's literally like reminded me of like a really famous person's death. It was like the Twitter feed just went crazy. Crazy.
It was like, I wonder if it's going to show up at this year's Oscars in memoriam.
Yeah. May it rest in peace.
May it rest in peace.
So Demetri, I know, for those who don't know, Demetri not only reviews movies, but he has a long history, as you probably guessed if you watch this show, with interpreting box office, working with theaters. So he has a lot of knowledge and expertise in this area. So, Demetri, I'm going to leave this to you. What does this mean for the industry?
You know, this is actually for the industry. It's kind of a big blow. And I'm actually surprised that we didn't get more of that in our storytelling, because a lot of it was, woe is me from like film fans and film Twitter, and then movie creators, directors, things like that. One thing about the Arclight, I think that should be noted. First off, I like the Arclight. I was never like in love with the Arclight, but here's the deal: the Arclight, what it did, and what Pacific Theaters, Decurin did, is they made a movie theater that was truly made for, I would say, even more of the creative, more for the filmmaker, more for the movie fan. They were one of the first theaters to do, that sort of kind of, what would you call it, stadium type of seating, reserved ticketing seating, and big screen. They had specific rules. They would only play three trailers. And let me tell you, it was a pain in the neck when you were a little independent studio trying to get a trailer played at the Arclight, because in some cases, they wouldn't allow that to happen until they were booked with the feature. And sometimes that didn't happen until maybe 3 weeks out. And then sometimes even a shorter window. But it was all great, because I remember going to the Arclight for the first time. And it was a great movie going experience, especially with the theaters that were around. Now, I will also say that my favorite theater, even at that time and still up there today, was the Village, the Westwood Village Theater, which you always had a great time in. But the Arclight showed what theaters could be. And the years that followed, innovation and renovation kind of caught up with them, because almost every theater chain after the Arclight kind of copied their pattern. And when you have AMCs and Cinemarks and Regals really upping the game and just expanding on what Arclight did. So to me, the ArcLight kind of stayed the same. They never renovated enough, like other theater chains did. It's because they didn't have to, because they had such a huge gross. They were always selling out, and they were always mentioned by celebrities. They were mentioned by directors, producers. The one thing about the ArcLight is if you did have a movie playing there and you had something special to exhibit and or showcase, whether it were props from the movie, costumes, things like that, you could work with them and get that stuff promoted and set up. So you walk into the lobby of the theater, and there, lo and behold, would be this awesome, amazing model or prop. And that was kind of cool. And they had this bookstore, and they had a lounge. But I think the biggest thing that people aren't really grasping about this is that there were 11 ArcLights in the country. Pacific Theaters 2 closed. So we're talking 300 screens are now gone, and with some of those screens being huge grossers. So it's going to impact the Los Angeles market to an extent, but it's also going to impact employees across the country. And while everybody was thinking that the ArcLight Theater was just one theater, it's not. They were in San Diego, they were in Washington, they were in Boston, Chicago, and they over here in Southern California, Pacific renovated a lot of their Pacific theaters and turned them into ArcLight theaters, like in Manhattan Beach, in Culver City. So I really feel bad for a lot of the workers who are now out of work. Prior to this article, ArcLights or Pacific had announced that they were going to open on Memorial Day weekend of this year. They were prepping for that. So I know a lot of people were excited. Now, again, I am more concerned and will more miss the Cinerama Dome, which Decurion also had. And it was right outside of the ArcLight Theater. That was a truly amazing, wonderful movie-going experience. They would show a lot of catalog type titles from back in the day. The very first movie to play at the Cinerama Dome was It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. It was made pretty much specifically for the Cinerama Dome, and I've seen that movie there, and it's such a joy and to watch and to see it in its full glory. That theater is a landmark. That theater is Hollywood history. You can look up Cinerama Dome and just look up like things like E.T. Cinerama Dome, and you'll see the lines of people waiting to get in. And again, it truly was a wonderful experience. The ArcLight is fine. We Scott, you and I, there are a lot of press screenings there, but it's also going to affect our side of the industry as well. Because Scott, how many times did you go to the ArcLight for a specific screening? And there was about another 8 screenings there as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's my point about it. I think there's a level of nostalgia for critics within this industry who are connecting, holding ArcLight in such a high level because of the fact it's what they're so used to. And when you talk about the location of theaters in Hollywood for where most critics live, right? A lot of them live in the Valley, and then a lot of them live, in Hollywood area. It's the easiest theater for most people to get to, and you would almost know that a Universal screening would be there. Usually a Paramount screening would be there. Warner Brothers for the longest time used to do their screenings there, but then they moved them to the Grove. Almost every movie Warner Brothers released was at the Grove, except for a few of them. I saw Birds of Prey at ArcLight.
And if allow me to interrupt too, and unfortunately, The Grove is part of the Pacific Theater Group, and they're closed. And that was a good theater. That used to be their flag. The Grove was like a flagship theater until the ArcLight kind of opened. And then they had this Grove Theater, which is really nice. And sadly, that is gone too. So,
but yeah, I mean, I think a lot of stories, it's just kind of like, when I think about my life back east, and I remember growing up in like New Jersey, and I had like 2 or 3 theaters that I would go to all the time. Like I would go to the Regal in South Plainfield, I would go to the Lowe's in New Brunswick, and then the Regal, I think it was in South Brunswick. So like you have those nostalgia moments where you're kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe it's gone. And every time I go back to Jersey, I'll drive past that and I'll be like, I remember when I used to go there every single weekend, or the story I shared with Demetri at lunch earlier in the week. It's like, oh, I rode my bike all the way across town to go see Casper in the Regal in, South Plainfield. You have those moments. And I think as critics, we have those moments because the ArcLight is kind of like a meeting place for a lot of us. We sit around after the movie, we talk. We're not in a rush. It's one of the theaters that I've noticed the most where critics will sit around and talk in circles, where the other ones are kind of like, oh man, I got that long drive home. I'm going to leave the AMC Century City and I'm just going to go. It's the one where most people hang around. And like you said, I think it's the fact that they have the props there. There's usually multiple screenings going on at once. There's premieres that happen there pretty frequently. I mean, usually about 2 or 3 a week of smaller independent films or TV shows. So I think all that kind of goes into our experiences and how much time we spent there. And it's like, that's now going away. But the irony of all this situation is that whatever theater goes next, whatever theater goes to become the one we go to now all the time, those memories will shift over to that theater, and we will slowly form that sort of love connection to that next theater, and we will be like, oh my God, I talked to Quentin Tarantino here. Oh my God, Carey Mulligan came here, and I saw her. Oh my God, Joaquin Phoenix. Those are going to shift because I'm sure if we talked about the Landmark shutting down, a lot of the same stories you hear about the ArcLight probably happened over at the Landmark too for a lot of people.
Yeah, and again, innovation and renovation, like where the ArcLight was a first in its class to do so, every other theater chain came up. So I could say, like, I wasn't quite a fan of going up to the ArcLight for me because it wasn't necessarily easy to get to. But now today, where AMC theaters have kind of upped their game and they have like a Dolby house, which I think is the best presentation of a movie, and it beats ArcLight by a lot. Cinemark opened up their Playa Vista XD house. I remember going to that opening day. And again, just beautiful and beautifully spaced and beautifully designed theaters, all with all with that stadium kind of seating, comfortable chairs. Everybody was doing reservations after the ArcLight. So the ArcLight was a trend-setting theater. They were trending in Hollywood, but they always remain trending in Hollywood. But like I said, I just think that for my tastes, the renovation and innovation that happened with theaters around the world, in fact, I just think that ArcLight always kind of remained the same. And Scott, you brought up location. That's the one thing the ArcLight had going for it.
Yeah.
When it opened up. Think about it, because in that area, right? What do you really have? Nothing. The closest would be
TCL,
but that's one screen, right? And then
if you count the 6 behind it,
but they're tiny theaters.
Yeah,
they weren't what the ArcLight is, right? And then you have Universal City Walk, which they just recently redid that theater, but for the longest time, Universal, the AMC did, and Lowe's AMC, they did nothing to renovate that theater. That theater was a dump. right? And then after that, you've got the Burbanks. And the location for where ArcLight is, was, is, you're right. I mean, for filmmakers, for studios, if you're from Paramount, easy to get to. Sony, maybe not so much, but Universal, relatively easy to get to. It was an easy place for the creatives to go to, and they were treated like royalty. Like you always hear, oh, the staff was so great, but look, the staff was great at every ArcLight. They were very well trained in customer service, but also for the movie aficionado, for the movie service. So I'm sure that people in Chicago are going to miss their ArcLight theater. So in fact, speaking of Chicago, the last movie that I saw at the ArcLight Theater was my good close friend Ian Kaiser. He produced St. Francis. He had a special screening at the ArcLight Theater, and that was like literally not about a week before the planet shut down. And that was the last time I was at the ArcLight. Great movie, and I didn't catch COVID. So that's a plus too. And they would do all kinds of movies there. And I think that's why directors and producers loved that place, because they would celebrate the big and they would celebrate the indie as well and give them the same kind of treatment. And that, I think, is what's going to be missed in Hollywood. It's going to be curious to see from a press perspective, like who's going to pick up this slack. Also, I think it should be noted, somebody's going to buy this chain. Stuffed Burrito Entertainment has an interesting thing. All these millionaires in Hollywood, and they can't open up their pockets to save some of these theaters. It's an interesting point, but these millionaires don't know how to run these theaters. That's the thing. So, like, you can't get like a Christopher Nolan, and Bob Iger is not going to. I mean, he could, but what I think is going to happen is somebody like a Netflix is going to come in and they're going to cherry pick. Like, they'll buy the whole chain, and then they're going they'll get rid of some of the lower grossing theaters. But we also have to talk about Pacific theaters, because the Grove was a big grosser. Winnetka for Pacific theaters and for the country was also a big grossing, a high grossing theater. Sadly, the studios aren't happy with this, because not only because they don't have a place to have screenings and do some promotions, there's money that's going to be left on the table. The ArcLight was a big fan movie favorite. I say watch our industry, the press, move to downtown LA, where we have Regal Live in the Alamo Drafthouse.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm kind of thinking might happen.
Well, before
I also think somebody's going to buy them.
I want to actually, I found this article, which I stumbled upon. So this is interesting to compare. So this was on 4/12. The story broke that they were going to close, but this one got no traction. And this was out by IndieWire. ArcLight gets an eviction notice. And this is interesting because this eviction notice was on the door of the Culver City location, which I will tell you from a few years ago, before the LA Film Festival, which does not exist anymore, closed. They basically tried to shift their locations to ArcLight theaters that were struggling. They did a lot of them over in the Santa Monica ones, and they did a lot of it at Culver City. And it was hopefully to push and get people more attracted to those theaters. And I remember press would not cover it down there. They literally would have to beg, borrow, and steal to get people coming down. It was a huge pain in the ass to get to. I mean, you talk about a pain in the ass to get to from anywhere else in LA, Culver City. I mean, really, whenever people go to a Sony lot screening, it's like, oh, really? We're going to go all the way down to Sony? It's like a
for
you. But it's interesting because that theater has been struggling for years. It was one of their lower grossing of the chain. it was one of the low engrossing movies. I mean, I also think the Pasadena one wasn't doing that great. It was also never really renovated as much as the other ones either.
No, but something to note about Culver City is that theater, I believe it opened first as a Pacific theater. And the only other game in town was literally a dumpy man theater that was virtually like a few blocks down the street, across the street from it. And it was a dumpy theater. It eventually closed. Pacific Theater came in and saw the location, and what was going on was a high renovation in downtown Culver. If you go to Culver City today, as opposed to when they opened up that Pacific Theater, which has to be now 15, almost about, I would say 15 years ago, it's not the same Culver City. And Pacific they kind of had the foresight to say, hey, Culver City is becoming a little more upscale. They're opening up some more restaurants, wine bars. And it was a walking city too, where a lot of people could walk. A lot of locals who lived in that area could walk to that theater very easily. And then the main theater closed because Pacific was a far better, more comfortable place to watch a movie. So, but then they just decided to they decided to expand the Arclight brand, and Culver City was one of them. Pasadena was another one. Pasadena was part of an outdoor mallish area across the street from the convention center. You also had Manhattan Beach, which converted to a Pacific Arclight. Santa Monica was a brand new thing. And again, when you look at the theaters that are in Santa Monica, Arclight is totally a step up from where you can see
that AMC down there is terrible.
Yeah, right. And so it's fascinating to me. And I don't think that they were diluting the brand. In fact, I think they were just starting to expand. Especially the theater in Chicago did really well. Arclight in Boston was really bringing in a crowd. So you have to think of it. I look at it as more of a whole than I do just the singular Hollywood location. Look, it's no good when any theater chain, 300 screens is not a ton of screens, but it's still employees lost. It's still a movie-going experience lost, and regardless of the location. And again, even in San Diego, they were part of the UTC Mall, which is an outdoor experience kind of big mall, and that was like an anchor theater. They were always crowded. I saw a handful of movies there. So I miss Arclight and Pacific. I don't want to see the business contract more. I do think they will be bought out by somebody. So maybe they'll keep the name Arclight just for branding purposes, and it's what people know. Again, I wasn't the biggest fan of going to the Arclight because I had the same experience you did. They were never that close to me. Culver City was closer to me. Manhattan Beach was closer to me. I remember the first movie I saw at the Pacific Manhattan Beach when that opened. It was Austin Powers. That was the first movie that opened up over there. So I did, if you want, we both did our top 10 fondest memories of going to the Arclight that, is very David Letterman-ish. We're just taking off from him, but I had a top 10 list of my fondest memories of going to the Arclight Theater. And they are, I'm going to start off at number 10, going to the McDonald's down the street right after a screening. Yeah, that's right. They had a good McDonald's right down the street. The food was always hot. The fries, let's be honest, McDonald's has the best fries, and it was just easy in and out. So that's number 10. Number 9, finding parking on the same floor as the theater. Scott, you know how important that was.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you found parking on the same level that the theater was, because it was easy access, when you saw a really bad movie, that was a really quick exit. That was like zoom. It's like I don't have to climb stairs. I can just get to my car and nobody will ask me what I thought of the movie. Number 8 for me, eating at the conveyor belt sushi restaurant that was across the way. That was like the 8th restaurant to occupy that space. And I think there were 2 others that replaced that one, and they too closed. Restaurants never had luck opening across the way from the Arclight. Number 7, overpaying for mediocre food at the lounge, only to spend another $20 for a bag of the Arclight caramel corn, which was really good, but it was so expensive. I think they had good concessions, but man, oh man, Ishevitz, like they were expensive. And, I'm also going to fondly miss the stale popcorn they gave us for the press screenings. That popcorn was at least a day old. My number 6 fondest memory of going to the Arclight was your name not being on the press screening list, only though you confirmed you were going like 5 times. That was always fun to be at the entrance of the theater holding up a line because they couldn't find your name. Well, they found your name, but mine they conveniently lost. Number 5, finding a parking pay machine that worked. At the end, how many times, Scott, at the end of the thing, you'd go to pay, they had all these parking machines outside. It's like out of order. And it was like, and the line for the one that worked just got longer and longer and longer. Here's another one. My number 4 fondest memory of the Arclight, buying a movie book from the shop inside the Arclight Theater, only to learn a few days later that Barnes & Noble, their clearance rack, had the same book for like $2 after I just paid $50. That's another fond memory. My number 3 fond memory of the Arclight, watching a movie at the Cinerama Dome, because I do miss the Cinerama Dome. Number 2, my number 2 fondest memory, parking in the garage and walking by the Arclight to my way to Amoeba Records to buy movies. Amoeba used to be right around the corner. If you remember, in Scott, I'm sure you've been there a bunch of times, and it was a great place to pick up used Blu-rays. And my number 1 fondest memory of going to the Arclight Cinema was buying a tiki mug at the Alamo Draft House. That has nothing to do with the Arclight Theater, but I bought tiki mugs at the Alamo Draft House. So there we go. Arclight Theater, we bid you a fond farewell. I think like a bad penny, it's going to turn up again. Somebody's going to buy them, and then everybody will be, yay, thank you. And it's the one time I think Netflix is perfect for it. And, studios are going to hate to give Netflix money to hold their premieres there. But it'll happen.
I'm telling you, it's a toss up between Amazon, Netflix, and Apple. It's going to be.
Agreed.
It's more than likely going to be. If you had to say to me, put money on the table, put a 20 on the table, and tell me which one who's going to save this, I would tell you one of those 3.
Same here.
And the one thing I just wanted to because I know I'm cynical, but I think it's very, very funny. I mean, listen, I love in all seriousness, I did love going to the Arclight. And I realize saying that is because I didn't have to pay to go to the Arclight. So I'm going to say that because a lot of people won't admit that online. But if you were going to that theater and you were throwing out $17 to $19 a ticket, and you were going as a couple, like me and my wife, and then buying a popcorn and a soda or going to dinner, I mean, you're looking at throwing away about $120 if you were having dinner that night to go to the Arclight.
Oh, simple. Yeah. So, and you didn't get a discount on food if you bought a $17 ticket to go to the lounge.
No.
No. And it was just elevated bar food. Yes. That's all.
Yeah. It was basically like Applebee's or TGI Fridays.
A little bit. Yeah, maybe. A little better.
I mean, they had avocado toast, so it was a little classier,
Donuts has avocado toast now, so.
but yeah, well, it's trendy now. But the whole thing with the Arclight, in all seriousness, reminded me of the film Struck. I couldn't remember. I was talking to Demetri about this a while ago about the app. Everyone Filmstruck shut down. It was like, oh my God, everyone, all the actors and directors. Oh, what am I going to do now? Where am I going to watch my movies? Blah, 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 blah. And like literally like a week or two went by and probably you're sitting there like, Filmstruck. What was that? Wow. Some people will be like, "Oh yeah, I remember that. I still."
You know what the irony of that is? The same people who complained about Filmstruck, you even pointed one out. I'm not going to call the person out. Complained about the ArcLight.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is like whatever place they pick, this is how it's going to go for the first at least year. Oh God, I miss the ArcLight. Damn. God, the ArcLight was so much better at this than this place. Oh, the ArcLight is this than that. And then after that, it's going to be like, hey, all right, hey, this theater's great. And let's hope it doesn't shut down. I hope whoever buys it buys all of them because they will get 300 decent screens. Our Decurion was very location specific, so this story is going to continue to play out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you look at how many articles came out on various trades about this, I mean, like literally like every day there's been a story. It's kind of like, what are our favorite memories from the Cinerama Dome? What will happen if someone buys the ArcLight? I literally went through all the news stories this week and I was kind of like, wow, crazy. All right.
And meanwhile, in Nebraska,
we talked 30 minutes about the ArcLight, so I think it's time to move on.
I think that's a good in memoriam.
Yeah. In memoriam to something that's probably going to pop up in like 6 months from now. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, by Christmas.
So this was crazy casting last night. We don't normally don't talk about casting on this show, but I think we were all pretty amused by this. Carey Mulligan, going to space with Adam Sandler and Spaceman. I don't know what to say about this. I mean, people have like really hate Adam Sandler Netflix comedies. I think like Hubie Halloween kind of had like a pass. Like some people really liked it, some people didn't. I also thought Murder Mystery was fun, just to put that out there. But I mean, Carey Mulligan in like an Adam Sandler movie seems like, I don't know. It's an odd casting choice. It's an odd casting choice.
Especially coming after Promising Young Woman. I'm going to do an Adam Sandler movie. And I don't know if this space movie is a comedy or what. I was, in all honesty, a little disappointed that it wasn't Hubie Halloween 2 that she was going to be in. But when I saw it, I was like, Adam Sandler, Carey Mulligan. Didn't see that one coming, but you know what? I'll watch it for sure. I hope they have screen time together. Because, I read a little bit about the plot, and he's an astronaut going to the edge of the galaxy, and I think she's his wife. So I'm not sure if she's with him. I don't know exactly what she's going to do, but I found the casting to be
parody on First Man. That's what I want it to be.
Oh, and if anybody could do that right, it would be him. I would love that.
Because you remember how great the chemistry was between Ryan Gosling and whoever the woman was in that movie, who I can't even remember.
The chemistry between Ryan Gosling and anybody in that movie. There was the angriest cast in a movie ever. They were the first people on the moon, and they were so pissed at their jobs. Okay. But in any case, get that Happy Madison check, Carey. Hey, you know what? Good for her. Like, again, what is it about Adam Sandler? He gets people to... He had the Dunkachino. He had Al Pacino. Like,
that's
I mean, people like working with them. And she's like, why not? Why not? Now I could be part of the family. Yeah.
And then she'll be in like, she'll pop up here and there in previous films, like moving forward. Or not previous films, but future films.
It came as a shock, but sure. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Promising Young Hubie.
Yeah. All right. In the same topic, I'm excited about this. I don't know, Demetri, if you were a fan of Community, but like I love Community. And Yvette Nicole Brown was interviewed this week for a show that she's doing. And yeah, she's teasing that the Community movie is coming. I don't know. Did you watch this show, Demetri, at all?
I watched it bits and pieces. I know we've discussed this show. Well, you've discussed the show. Yes. So I've actually feel like I've enjoyed the show through you. Yes. So now this movie though, cable, like this isn't a theatrical movie.
If I was to bet money on that, I would probably say it would be a streaming movie. It's weird because the rights to Community were sold to Yahoo for the final season. Do you remember that when Yahoo tried?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
They tried to do like streaming content, and they had that show and like one or two others, and like then they decided never to do it again. It was very weird, even though that season was actually much better than the previous season or season before that. I can't remember which season was like the weaker one, but. Yeah, I don't know who owns the rights, but originally it was on NBC. So maybe if it is NBC, they'll put it on Peacock. They'll have a Peacock movie exclusive, sort of like the Psych movies.
That would make 100% sense to me. That would make 100% sense. Yeah. And I think it would do really like people who have Peacock, I think it would do really well. Does Peacock now, are they streaming all the seasons or the earlier seasons of the show on there? I don't know. I don't have it.
What's kind of weird about that is that the rights to Community is all over the place. It's on multiple streaming platforms still. Like it's still on Hulu. I think it's on, I think it is on Peacock as well. And if I'm not mistaken, it's also on Netflix. So it's all over the place. Where a lot of these other shows, they kind of pulled the rights to only have on one of them to have exclusive rights to it. But this, for some reasons, on multiple ones.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm excited for that. Obviously, it's going to be weird because there's no way that Chevy Chase is going to come back.
No.
Because of all the little issues that happen with him. It's so funny talking about Chevy.
He got old.
I mean, like, I know, like, a lot of people are like, how can you like Chevy Chase because he's such a racist now because of all the stuff that he said? But I mean, he was my childhood. Like, I mean, seriously, like, nobody can make me laugh like Chevy Chase. I mean, Funny Farm, Christmas Vacation, all the vacation movies in general. I mean,
SNL and Happy Shack and Three Amigos. Oh my God. What's sad about Chevy Chase is he got old, and it's just sad it's sad to see him. It's sad to see him today because he can barely talk. And I know part of it was, they say, from all the pratfalls he used to do and take and things, but yeah, he just got to be a dirty old racist grandpa, I guess. But you're right. I mean, you can't take what. Someday we'll do more of a thing on Chevy Chase, but you can't forget about Foul Play.
I know.
He was in so many
good movies. Fletch, don't forget about.
Of course. Fletch. Yeah, he's Fletch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. I mean, it's really a shame because it goes to show you too, like how one misfire in your career could really destroy you and take you down. Because I mean, Community was that for him. Like it's very interesting. Ken Jeong got a huge career between Community and the Hangover movies. Like he's literally like everywhere. I mean, like he's on The Masked Singer, he's on The Masked Dancer, he has another TV show. I mean, he's all over. He was hosting the New Year's Eve thing this year. And he's been in so many damn movies. Had his own TV show. I mean, it's crazy. Yvette Nicole Brown, I think, benefited a lot from Community.
Oh my God, yes.
And Donald Glover benefited a lot from Community. So like there's a lot of people who had that good positivity happen. But Chevy Chase, because of his disagreements, not only with Dan Harmon, but with Yvette and also with Danny Glover, that's crazy. I mean, even Joe McHale, who normally doesn't even comment on things, even spoke out and said he was kind of a jerk towards people, which is a lot because Joe McHale is like the ultimate jerk. So there you go.
You heard it here first. That's going to trend. Yeah, and if I remember correctly, too, he was supposed to have a show with Beverly D'Angelo.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be a sitcom they were supposed to do together, and that went bye-bye.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, oh, well. We can talk about him later.
Right. All righty. So going on to our next topic. One of the things, this is kind of going back to, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. So what is this? This is Trending 360.
We're back. Yes.
We're back to this. So as moviegoing returns, will Hollywood continue to hide the box office grosses? What say you, Demetri, on this?
Irony can be pretty ironic sometimes because, well, hear me out. Godzilla vs. Kong, whose movie is that?
Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers. What movie did they release in the middle of a pandemic? Didn't they think that they were going to revive box office? Wasn't Tenet a Warner Brothers movie? wasn't it a Warner Brothers movie?
Maybe.
And wasn't it within the second week of Tenet the grosses just vanished? I don't mean literally they did, but figuratively too, because they were the first to say no more reporting of the grosses. They hid the grosses. So when Godzilla vs. Kong comes out, who's out there going, yay, grosses? We brought movie going back. It only took them 3 tries. 3rd time's a charm, but now they're reporting grosses.
Yeah.
So this article to me is interesting. I think it's fair to go back a little, right, Scott? Because you and I talked about this when this happened.
Yeah.
So Tenet came out last summer?
Yeah, it was the end of summer, around August.
And, everybody thought Tenet was going to be the movie-going savior. It was going to bring people back. It didn't. Warner Brothers, literally, I think it was after its second week, if not its second week, because it didn't do so well, they said, we're no longer reporting grosses. And at that point, nobody else started reporting grosses. A lot of the stuff was going to streaming, too. And there was this big thing that Hollywood never does, and that's not report grosses. But the only time they don't like reporting grosses is when their grosses stink. So, but when you have, under normal circumstances, when everybody's reporting grosses, if you're not reporting them, you're hiding something. And, so even if you stink, you still have to report. But they were the only game in town. They didn't report grosses, if I remember correctly, on Wonder Woman. And they didn't report grosses on, it wasn't Scooby-Doo?
Yeah, Scooby-Doo, but that went straight to streaming.
Straight to streaming? Oh, it didn't play at a theater at all?
Yeah. So Wonder Woman, they reported numbers, but it wasn't like a draw. Like they didn't like make a big deal out of it like they did with normal box office.
And then, of course, Godzilla vs. Kong comes out. It does, surprisingly, optimistically, hopefully, it does very well. And they come out and say, we saved box office. Reporting box office grosses is an interesting thing because on one hand, it's a chest thumping thing, especially if you're the number one movie. And Warner Brothers can thump their chest for quite a while because Godzilla vs. Kong has zero competition. Zero.
It does.
They could say we were number one for 16 weeks. Yeah, it's because no other movie came out, to compete with you. So I think as movie-going returns, will Hollywood studios continue to hide box office? No, they're going to be forced not to, because everybody's going to want to know now.
Not Hollywood. Not
Go
Hollywood
ahead.
studios. I think independent movies are gonna high box office.
I don't know, because they really have. I don't know. I really don't know about that, because independent movies rely on not necessarily the reporting of their box office gross, but the reporting of their on-screen average. And when you have when you have an independent movie that opens up at 4 locations, 2 locations in New York, 2 locations in Los Angeles, you'll get a good box office gross.
Oh,
But
for
they
what,
want
for
to say,
theaters that won't exist anymore.
well, Landmark, it'll go to Century City now, Landmark, and independent theaters. When it was a situation like that, it would say they had the highest per screen average in the country. Well, yeah, you're only playing at 4 theaters, of course. But no, I think the Hollywood studios are not going to continue. I think when you have Black Widows, and once we start getting into fall, you and I talked about the holiday season starting with the end of October, going into Christmas. There's going to be some big movies coming out, and things are going to, again, unless, knock wood, we don't have a major relapse in surge. People will be going to these big releases again. The engine is slowly starting. So, I think it's good for Warner Brothers, but it's good for the business, folks. Yeah. It's good for the business. And the one thing, too, I think that people should be aware of, I've been doing a little bit of research on Kong, and I wanted to try to find something that could comp it out to be a good comparison, right? Obviously, you can't find anything in 2020, but I went back to 2019, right? And I found Shazam. Also, I believe that was Warner Brothers, right?
Yes, it was.
Shazam opened up at around the same time period, right? Now, you'd go, Demetri, come on. Shazam opened up at 4,000 locations. The box office itself, it's not apples to apples. You'd be right. But you want to know crazy what actually has been kind of on the money is its percentage drops and gains, like whether it be daily or the weekend box office. The percentage drops match up almost identically. Like in its second week, Shazam dropped like 53 or 51%. And I think Godzilla vs. Kong dropped like 56%. So that is what we have to look at. Let's look at the percentage drops. And if it's mirroring what happened to a release that went out on about 1,000, 1,500 more locations, that to me, I look at Godzilla vs. Kong as, okay, this is normal. This is good. This is good for us. I can't wait for our next big tentpole movie. These are things that we need to look at, because eventually we will get more screens open. Regal's going to be at 100, they're going to open up all their theaters, Cinemark, everybody. So right now, let's look at percentages to see if there's a normalcy there. And that means that even with seating capacities, that means people are still going, their movie-going habits still remain the same, in a sense, as they were in 2019. So, and the percentages don't lie. So, there.
Well, Demetri, I just wanted to add to your point about the box office.
Yeah.
And just say that a lot of things that people are not looking into, and I think Yash made a good comment about it, is right now it's Warner Brothers competing against themselves. So it's almost like, now they're going to have, next week they'll have Mortal Kombat. There'll be nothing else out until that Guy Ritchie movie that we talked about yesterday that no one even knows is coming out.
No.
So
the Jason Statham one.
Yeah, right. The Jason Statham one, which again, Jason Statham by himself not typically even a huge box office draw alone. He's usually has to be paired with someone. Like when you pair him with The Rock, you get big box office.
And when you pair him with a shark, a megalodon, you get big box
office because you like literally look at how ridiculous and stupid and terrible that movie was. But you know, most of his action movies by himself, you know, like they're cheap and easy to make, but they're not huge draws at box office. They do very well on video and in terms of rentals and also purchases. But yeah, I mean, I think people do want to go back to the movies, and I think it'll be interesting. The weekend that I'm most excited for leading up to summer, and I guess it's the first weekend of summer, is that Memorial Day weekend where we get to see Cruella go head-to-head with A Quiet Place. And I'm very curious how that pans out, because right now I'm very nervous because Paramount has not put out any marketing for Quiet Place 2.
I don't know what they're waiting for at this point.
I don't know either, and I'm a little worried about it. And then, Cruella has like mixed reactions, and I feel like if you're a family, you're not going to drag your family to go see that. You're going to do the Disney Plus premiere for that if you're actually going to pay for it.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know. I don't see that one coming back. Like I think Disney's really has to wait until Black Widow before they have a really strong, indication of whether or not their return to theaters is going to be worth it. I don't think Cruella's going to do it.
That I am in 100% agreement with you. I'm in 100% with everything that you said, including Quiet Place. I don't know what Paramount's waiting for.
It's also weird. It's also weird that Disney, with how much confidence they usually have, is the ones that are actually going to have the latest return to form, right? Because you're going to have Warner Brothers came out with Godzilla versus Kong. They got to be the first big movie out. I feel bad for Universal because Universal has been putting a lot of stuff out. But the thing is that the marketing campaigns for them haven't been that strong. They haven't been putting the marketing dollars out because I think a lot of people would have went to see Nobody if more people knew about Nobody, because it's a damn fun movie.
Yeah, it's hard to compete though with a known franchise entity.
Right. It's it's a Bob Odenkirk movie. Who?
Right.
Guy. Come on, go watch it.
And I think nobody is the little train that could, because I think it did better than people expected it to do.
I think it's going to do really well tonight because they're doing a lot of watch parties all weekend for it. And it's the first day, so if you haven't seen it now, you can go to Premium VOD and rent it. It's $20. I think it's well worth the rental because it's a blast. If you feel comfortable going to see it in a movie theater, go to the movie theater instead. But if not, definitely check it out today. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed that movie more than Godzilla versus Kong, hands down. I actually would say it's probably one of my favorite movies that I've watched during the pandemic, just because it delivers on everything that it promises. But to me, it's shorter than Godzilla versus Kong. And like, I'm amused by Godzilla versus Kong because of the special effects and the visuals. This one, I'm actually more impressed with the practical effects, like with the stunt people and like what Bob Odenkirk was able to do with a character that I have never seen him play before. He basically becomes John Wick. Like that's really what this movie is. It's like Bob Odenkirk becoming John Wick. And I just was not expecting it, and it's a blast.
Yeah, I pre-ordered it for Blu-ray. But actually, now that I'm vaccinated and I'm beyond 2 weeks, I may actually go. That could be my first movie that I see at my Demetri's grand return.
But I got sidetracked there too. I actually forgot. Like I got sidetracked, but like with the Disney conversation, what I was saying is that Warner Brothers has the big movie there. And then, Warner Brothers will have Mortal Kombat, which I think will do okay. I think it's going to do well overseas. It'll be mixed here. I think the reviews are going to be very mixed on it. And then, you're going to have Universal coming out. Speaking of our good friends at Universal, with Fast 9, which is going to segue into our final segment for the show. That movie, regardless of what me and Demetri say about the trailer, we all know it's going to be tons of freaking people are going to see it. It's going to make tons and tons and tons of money. But that's going to happen. And then you got Paramount in the mix. And I mean, the last one out is going to be Disney. I mean, yes, they have Cruella, but Cruella, like we said, I mean, I just can't see Cruella doing good money. I just can't.
Neither can I, to be honest with you. Neither can I. And albeit I'm seeing some marketing, but it doesn't seem to be the Disney formula of just blast it the hell out there so that everybody sees a billboard and advertising. I agree 100% about Cruella. Mortal Kombat, we'll see. It's interesting,
and not to mention In the Heights. In the Heights is coming out in the summer as well, which will be a great thing for the Latino community. They actually have not had any movies come out in a theater yet that speaks to their audiences. So that's going to be a big draw for them. Going to do nothing in Middle America. I'm just going to again call that out right now. But in major cities worldwide, it'll probably do gangbusters. But anywhere in Middle America, like you go into a screening of In the Heights in like Missouri, and there'll be like one person sitting there like, oh, I like Lin-Manuel Miranda. Let's go see it.
And that's the usher. It's the usher. Yeah. But I think everything that you've said, Scott, is so 100% true. But look at it too. It's also like us. It's trending in Hollywood. It's trending across the country. I think little by little, these are the gears. Yeah. The steam is coming up to heat, and they're going to start, chugging along and more. Again, let's just hope that people continue to stay smart, get vaccinated, and just play everything smart here. Let's not have another surge that will keep people away from the theater. But I think we're going to have a lot of exciting things to talk about, because we're going to be able to, now we're really going to be able to get into the nitpicky about theatrical versus online streaming. How much does it take away? Godzilla vs. Kong was kind of funny, because what did HBO Max say? It was our biggest ever. Everybody has the biggest ever movie during the pandemic. It's like going to Vegas, where everybody has best steak. This is the best show on Vegas. This is the best show on the Strip. This is the best chicken on the Strip. Everything's the best. It's the best and biggest. I think Black Widow is going to be a good test. Widow is going to be a good test.
Well, Fast is going to be a good test. I think Fast, segueing over to that, I think Fast 9 is going to be the box office champion the world has been waiting for. That is what it is. It's going to do what Tenet was supposed to do. It's going to do bigger numbers than Godzilla vs. Kong. And even though it's Chapter 9 in a franchise that probably should have stopped after Chapter 5, it's still going. And my God.
What happens if you do Shift F9 on your computer? Does that do anything stupid?
I don't know.
So
it skips ahead, apparently. That's what it does.
Yeah. So Fast 9 is going to, well, internationally, it's going to do really well. And I think they even just got approval to play in China.
Yeah.
Which it's going to do huge, right? So we saw the trailer this week, and people are like, look, it's a Fast 9 movie. So people are like, they're going to go into space. And like, that to me is not the most unbelievable thing in a Fast and Furious movie of recent times. To me, the most unbelievable thing in the world is, really? Vin Diesel and John Cena are related?
Yeah.
To me, it's like, brothers from another mother and another father too. Like, how do you, like, that to me is the most.
He was adopted. Okay.
I mean, that to me is the most. them going into space, you just go, well, of course they will. But them being brothers, okay. Okay. Well.
I mean, I still can't get over that they got. I mean, listen, I know Charlize Theron is like game to kind of like do anything. Like she tries to do like action, and she's she was great in Long Shot where she was did comedy.
Comedy, sure.
But my God, I mean, her in this movie, I mean, the last one, I mean, so cringeworthy. I was just like, oh my God, poor Charlize Theron. This is not a good role for you.
Yeah, but the movie made a ton of money, and I agree. I think Fast 9 is going to be a very good indicator because Fast 9 isn't going on streaming, right?
No, that's a good question. Is it doing the 3-week window?
Oh, that to me is going to be very interesting because the Fast and Furious movies have proven to have, at least domestically, legs at the box.
Very long run.
Very good run where they stay in the top 5, and theaters aren't going to want to lose that money. I don't know. Universal is the one that's been wanting to crack this window. It'll be very interesting to see. But I do agree. We're going to have it'll be bigger than Godzilla vs. Kong. But I think it's because of Godzilla vs. Kong that we could say, yeah, F9 is going to do really well. We have proof, and we're only going to be getting better and better. More screens are going to be open. More theaters across the country will be open. And And this is the last one that they're hyping, and we've got flying cars.
We got people that don't know how to drive. They're hyping. I mean, there's no way that this is the last one, Demetri.
You don't think so?
No freaking way. No freaking way. I mean, unless they just change the title to Fast in Space and like just say that they're doing a spin-off franchise. No freaking way. I mean, we talk about this all the time. Outside of Jurassic Park,
right?
What else does and Despicable Me for the kiddos? What are other really big franchises that Universal has?
McHale's Navy.
The universe that they keep trying to reboot over
Monster Universe, Jaws, Back to the Future.
Let's do E.T. again.
So you really don't think
any day right now it's coming?
So you really don't think this is going to be the final family gathering?
Final chapter? No.
Yeah. Huh.
No.
Okay.
No.
Interesting.
I mean, I think it's going to make so much. I mean, they're already talking about, they're going to do something spinoff. Maybe Vin Diesel will leave, which like to me is like dumb because like these movies, again, talking about something that made actors, Paul Walker would not have had a career without this movie franchise. Vin Diesel would not have had a career without this. Michelle Rodriguez was struggling in independence for so long prior to doing these.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the other cast too. I mean, Joanna Brewster, she was also in a bunch of small independent movies. Never really was. I mean, these movies like really made these people household names.
Absolutely.
But it almost showed how the franchise just had such loyal fan base because, again, when you take out that franchise from it and just put these people in movies, those movies did not do well.
They don't work. No, and it's not just domestic. Fast and Furious became a worldwide box office huge. You know the audience too that really, really like gave this franchise a ton of love is the Latin.
Yeah, the Latino community is huge.
The Latino community,
and then the Asian community because of all the racing, and that's why they did the whole thing with Tokyo Drift.
Yep, huge. So I don't know. Listen, I liked the last spinoff movie that they did.
Me too. I thought it was the best one since the fifth or sixth movie.
Yeah, but me too. I had so much fun. I would personally. I hope they make another movie together again. So I thought that was the best spinoff movie. This one just looks ridiculous. Like it looks ridiculous.
And to me, Yash said this too in the comments. And I mean, they're just so over the top at this point that, like, to me, it's not fun anymore. Like when I watch
Mm-mm.
them, it's just like, oh, that's ridiculous. And it's just like when again, sorry to go back to Nobody, but it's, hey, Universal, I'm still promoting one of your movies. When I go back to Nobody, it's so ridiculously over the top too, but it's sort of unexpected.
Yes.
That I'm like, I'm kind of in it, and I'm like, I appreciate it. I think like if they continued making those, by the time I got to like, if that was a big success, and I think they'll probably do a sequel. But if like they make like 6 of those, I'll be like, oh God, stop.
Right.
But this is what this franchise for me, it's like when you watch Die Hard, right? And as the Die Hard movies kind of continued on, you just kind of like they lost the charm. I mean, yes, the writing wasn't as strong, but like it just also like. They started losing the charm. Rambo movies kind of lost the charm. Like the more and more you milk something, the less and less effective it becomes to me. I guess not to moviegoers because apparently
no, that last Die Hard movie was awful. And then they tried to make Die Hard PG-13, which I actually think that Die Hard movie I think it's good, but the unrated version is much better. Because it's rated R.
The one with
4th of July.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I didn't think that movie was that bad either.
No. But this one has gotten more, check your brain in at the concession stand. And remember going way back when they did that bank heist and they pulled a huge stainless steel titanium safe out of a bank and they were dragging it through the streets of I forget where it was, Brazil or something, and you thought that was kind of ridiculous. Well, yeah, I mean they even make fun of the ridiculousness in the trailer. Like we ran away from submarines to this, and I'm like going, yes you did. Yeah. So, but it's going to make a ton of money. So, I'll defend Live Free or Die Hard. Yash says, I defend it too, but I like the unrated version better. I think it's because it allows John McClane to be John McClane. A Good Day to Die Hard was awful.
It was
to Mother Russia. It was awful. But I agree with you. I'm looking forward to seeing. I'll look forward to seeing Fast 9 in a movie theater, and can't wait to talk about the grosses to see how it is trending in Hollywood.
And that's a great way to end, Demetri. So thank you very much for that segue to end the show. We will be back next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. So stay tuned, and we'll see you soon. Have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, and awesome. Nobody recommendation. Go check it out in the movie theater or rent it. Now on POV.
And Vanquish. What? Yeah, and this other movie, Vanquish, is out. That has Ruby Rose and Morgan Freeman. Only for the most ardent Ruby Rose fans. Otherwise, you'll vanquish your time. So it'll vanish.
There you go.
Hey, bye, Scott. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
It was great having.